I think the general context for the switch is that I grew up in the Silicon Valley. So, and both my parents are entrepreneurs. And, I grew up with this idea that people switch jobs all the time. Like, it's like totally normal to like truly, I think my dad had probably 6 or 7 different companies that he worked with,
Oh
in my
wow.
childhood. And like, that was just because that's startup culture. Like, you work with a company, it does really well or it does poorly, and you find a new job. And so I kind of grew up with the mindset that, you know, that's normal, that's accepted. You're looking for challenges and problems that you like solving, and that's kind of how you should pursue your career. So when I joined this very traditional kind of hierarchical type job and career, I was it was an interesting shift in that mindset, and I don't think they even really understood the kind of trajectory and like where could this go and all of that. But you know, I think even from when I was a little kid, like I always dreamed of working and building something from the ground up,
Mm.
creating my own company, and um, I think I'm in essence I feel like filling that hole or that void that I've always wanted to by working with Art of Coaching because we're a small team. We do all of us do everything all the time. Like I think director of marketing, business operations, booking travel, running events, doing podcasts. So like it's everything, and I love that. Like I think I thrive in a little bit of chaos, and so I
Mm.
think it's been a good kind of. I finally feel like I've kind of hit my stride in terms of like being challenged in that way.
Because how many years has it been that you're been out of the field?
This will be just hit 2. Yeah, because the tournament just ended, and so I left right after we won in 21. So it's been 2 full years. Yeah, crazy.
Do you th- do you think that you're hitting your stride because you're in year two, or do you think it's because you're also working for a former S&C coach who's now an entrepreneur?
A little bit of both, for sure. Like there's certain affordances that we have all being a team of strength coaches because literally everyone on our team came from strength and conditioning. So we speak the language, we get each other. Um, I think even like the way we talk about business is very much in terms of periodization. And I think
Mm.
that's something that entrepreneurs and business people would benefit from learning from strength and conditioning is this idea of periodization and like seasons, like the fact that, okay, let's say we have a launch of something. And I know you guys, with Strength Coach Network and stuff like that would have this similar idea, right? Like a launch is equivalent to a championship season or a championship period, right? And like you're maybe um, tapering in the weight room, maybe you're changing the structure of how things go at practice, whatever that is, to optimize for a specific event. And I think understanding that from like a microcycle perspective, and then like the broader landscape of business, like, okay, where are we going? What do we need in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? Because, we're like living in the future, I feel like all the time as business people.
Yep.
And
No,
what about you?
absolutely. Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I'd be curious to hear kind of like how that's been. Like you've done both. You've kind of dabbled in business and entrepreneurial life, and also strength and conditioning. Is that something you guys see as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the it's actually interesting you said that about strength and conditioning coaches and running businesses because I mean, as a strength and conditioning coach or even just a sport coach, you're supposed to kind of project into the future and see something where it is and like, hey, I think you could be this. And all you have to do is work backwards from where you want to be and then take these nice logical progressions and hey, you're there. And like by doing that, I forget who I was talking to. It was Joe. Fuck, I forget his name. Joe, whatever. He used to work at UConn and he worked at Hofstra. Joe Staub,
Oh,
right?
Joe, stop! My
Right?
guy.
Right? So Joe Staub was like, I forget who he was talking to, but he was like, essentially, if we had more strength and conditioning coaches just in any of these roles, things would be better because
Yep.
they understand, kind of that blue collar mindset. Hey, roll your sleeves up, figure out where you want to go, where are you at, how do you safely get there, but how do you also get there safely within, pushing the extremes a little bit, no?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, like from that standpoint, like our science backgrounds and like understanding systems and like dynamic systems, particularly, right? Like
Mm.
human body and um, the college athlete in particular are a chaotic dynamic system, and like chaos theory, I think, really plays into that. But like you're always managing all these uncertainties, but trying to work towards something pretty specific and within a tremendous amount of constraint. So I think those principles transfer perfectly to business. That is business. I think the one thing that strength coaches where the transfer wouldn't happen as seamlessly is like what we were talking about beforehand with the financial aspect.
Amen to that. And within the reverse engineering world that we now have as, entrepreneurs running your own business, what is it like to actually have metrics that you're now more in control over? Because you worked in team sport, right? Like, okay, you could show coach, hey, vertical went up, whatever other metrics, but you really didn't have any control on the bottom line, but now you do. Like, how different of a paradigm shift is that for any of our listeners that maybe don't work in the stopwatch sports?
Ooh, what a great question. It's, yes, there's so much more control over metrics to an extent. I think, let's just take like the marketing part of it. I think, with where social media and, just content marketing and all of these things and how they're going right now, I feel like you can control only so much. And that's why it's helpful to have things like a newsletter, to have things like a website, things like a podcast, where you do have a little bit more control over reach and visibility, as opposed to this dark, deep black hole Pandora's box of social media, which is like, for example, we hired a marketing agency in my first year, who was going to help us run Facebook ads and Instagram ads. And, they talk a really good game. And like when they pitched us, there was like, this is going to be your ROI and like ROAS, right? Like return on ad spend. It was like this like term that I had to learn very quickly. I was like, whoa, this is a whole new language. And I just remember being like, okay, like, this is great. Like these are metrics we can track. These are things that are very, statistical and analytical by nature. This is going to be good. Like my brain thinks this way. And just actually getting into it and seeing the kind of shit show that all of this really is. Like nobody really knows what's going on with Facebook or Instagram ever. You can't control it. The only thing you can control is obviously staying consistent, pushing a consistent message. And I think like having this multi-platformed approach, but at the end of the day, like the biggest return we've seen is doubling down, tripling down on the aspects that we can directly control, like our newsletter, like our podcast, for example.
And, hearing you say that about like, the ads and whatnot made me think about when you had to recruit an athlete. We weren't going out and recruiting, but the coaches would bring them in, and then we're kind of, talking about ourselves a little bit. Do you see the similarities in how you got to kind of approach? Because that you're still selling the program. It's just a different program for somebody else.
Yeah. I think I'm not really sure where it came from, but I always resisted selling. When I was a strength coach, I actually fundamentally had some aversion to that term. And I think that's baked into the culture. I don't know where, I don't know. I'd be curious if that's something that you ever heard as a young strength coach, especially.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.